Why, hello, good looking. How are you? Peace. You can unmute yourself. It's just the two of us. I know you're eating. You always eat. Yeah, it's okay. I understand. You kind of like have a problem. You just like to have things in your mouth constantly.
All the time. Gotta listen to my job.
This is why we're friends. People realize that they look at you. It's pure racism. It really is because honestly, they think you're an angel just because you're just
I
Filipino.
am.
But yeah, you're a total angel. It's awesome. Private messages. I love them. Laura, Jessica. Actually, I've got some bad ones from Stephanie before. Elise is.
Really?
That's all the ones that look like they're polite. Leanne,
I,
all y'all.
really?
Jackie's
Leanne?
a girl. Jackie's a girl. Jackie doesn't say anything like inappropriate, but she has some. She's very sweet in her messages. You are just a naughty asshole.
God, I wish I could get drinks with you guys. God, I wish we could do happy hour like all the time. I would love to meet you guys.
Wonderful. Okay,
Oh,
so are you coming on? I haven't seen her yet.
so my trip to Florida later in this year, I might have to change a different date, but I can promise you guys I will be heading over into your area later in this area later because I have to go. Well, now that my brother is on board, I have to go to Indianapolis the same week that I had intended to go to West Palm Beach. So now I have to push my teaching vacation probably until next year or something. But I still want to see you guys before end of year, so I'm gonna head out to Florida just by myself. See you guys.
well, we'd love to have you. Why don't you fly from Indiana down here?
Hmm?
Are you doing that for Alpine?
Go cash flow field training.
That's
Um,
fantastic.
yeah, that 3-day weekend changed my entire life.
Really
So
does.
I can go back for another free weekend, but I want to take my brother, and I think he and I are having a really good, close relationship. So he and I have been texting.
It's amazing to have that healing. It really is.
Yeah, it really is.
I've
So
seen
I
that,
mean,
I've seen that happen more lately, but I'm really glad you guys have. It was a great story. Really touching.
yeah. So I was like, wow, I know investors are over in the Florida area. I'm like, cool. And there's like a bunch of you guys. I'm like, I might as well head over there, go drinking, and then we'll talk about real estate eventually.
Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah, it's fine. And Aaron would love to you guys. He would love that story too. You should probably tell him what's going on. He'll love it.
Who?
So it's so cool to see when this stuff happens. It really is. So for those of you who don't know,
Oh,
well,
congrats.
what do you say? Because we're live on Facebook now, so people have no idea like why that story is so cool. Why is that story so cool?
You want me to re-explain it from the top?
Yeah,
Okay.
there are 6 people watching on Facebook right now, and they need something else to do besides look at their kids or do their laundry.
Oh, well, the wonderful world of real estate brought me and my family close together, specifically me and my brother. My brother is about 10 years older than me. He and I have never really been that close because we never found common ground or anything. And I have this mindset of like, I don't need to be taken care of as the youngest child. And he says, I'm stubborn, whatever. So anyways, I got into this whole real estate world and started talking to my parents. My parents says that in my brother's career, his finances are actually turning around. Good for him. He has more cash flow coming, or he has more money coming from his W-2 income. His employer is a tech company here in Silicon Valley. They're doing an IPO later on in this year, which means in his role, he gets this huge bonus by the end of this year. So he has a lot of money coming in. Wonderful. His need is he doesn't have tax write-offs. So he's going to be put at the 40% tax bracket. And he's like, I need help. And so when he and I started talking, he said that he needed anything to decrease his liabilities. And I said, well, I have the C Corp, I'm developing my assets in real estate, and I'm accumulating a lot of business expenses. We went back and forth, and we realized we have skill sets we could benefit from. We have something we both mutually need from each other. So we were talking about changing this C Corp into a family business. And both of us agree. We talked to our dad. Again, the money's working, the needs are working, the skill sets are working. That happened on Sunday. And ever since then, I've been in this emotional state of like, holy crap. This real estate thing is bringing me and my family closer together. And I never thought that was on the horizon. He and I were texting last night. We were laughing and texting and talking smack about our parents. And like, oh my God, I don't understand mom either. And like, God, dad was frustrating me too. Like, how we were when we were younger. That was incredibly nice.
I'm so glad. Like, I love seeing that, Taylor, because it's so interesting. There's so many stories about when people start investing that it goes the other way around. Like, families get ruined or they weren't supportive or whatever it's got to be. And I still haven't gotten the support I was hoping from my family. Oh, I look like I just got done like sleeping with the entire Redskins quarterback team. Let me just make sure I didn't do that because they're changing their name. Gotta do it before it's done. There, I look professional now. Cool. Hi guys, are coming in. So that looks good, right? I look a little more less dad bod, maybe, I don't know. So but I love the fact that you and your brother are coming together making a family business because it's all about that. It's about making that legacy. And that's so cool. So I'm so glad you guys got that. Congratulations. Oh good, people are starting to come in. Okay. I think they just needed the link on Facebook. So make sure, Nelson, we start doing that better on Facebook and all of us, because I'm really trying to like give up reins and make systems. So for those of you just joining us, welcome. I'm Jacob James, your host with the most. We are here on Investor Party, and Nelson was just the one sharing his incredible story. He is actually Investor Party's COO, who has some great things planned for us. I'm so excited about them. And now he's going back to putting things in his mouth, because that's really what he does do best. So,
Hungry.
Pamela, how are you, my dear?
I'm fabulous, love. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're amazing.
Yeah, congrats.
Oh my God. It's like everything we've been working on is happening this week. I'm so excited, guys.
Yeah, it's a crazy week. It's good.
It really is. So for those of you who don't know, who might be watching on Facebook, I started a nonprofit in January, housing homeless LGBTQ young adults between the ages of 18 and 25. And it's my mission to get them financially free and becoming contributing members to society and have a place to heal. So I decided to do that by using broken properties and taking broken properties and fixing them by people who aren't broken. And they are going to go in and actually heal themselves, even though I don't really believe they're broken. We're going to use it as an actual way of healing themselves, so they actually build their own homes and they never feel like they're homeless again. They're also going to be getting skill sets to go with that along the way. And we've got lots of programs. We're working on lots of programs. My brain never shuts off. And I just got so damn busy and so excited about doing it. I started telling everybody about it, which is what this came out to be. Elise jumped on and started helping me out. Then Nelson comes in. We have a great community. I'm so excited, really. But we've been working for 4 months to buy a property through the nonprofit or to benefit the nonprofit, so that we are able to go in and teach these kids their first property. And we closed 2 hours ago. Finally, on our first one. We're gonna try this out. I'm so excited. Oh. Now the real work begins. Okay, so contractors, remodels, start watching. We're gonna be documenting everything. You can get to meet the kids. We're going to do this whole stuff. I have no idea what's going on. Just buckle up.
Okay.
By the way, Nelson, they're going to be doing a blog about us on Douglas Elliman's website. So I got to talk about that.
Derek, please make a post on Investor Party, copying Monday's link to this Zoom call, because people don't know how to get in. Elise didn't make a post for today.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So we're learning this too, which is really cool. Part of the idea of Investor Party, for those of you who are watching, is to show people the bumps and bruises along the way of getting your system set up as you're building your business, and having to hand over the reins to people to do what they can do. And then as you start to scale, those people need to pass those reins on further to develop more departments and skills as we're learning very clearly. So we are working that out now. It used to be just me, then it was me and Elise. Now she's sending that stuff on to Derek. Marlon was a part of it. So it's just a matter of growing it. It's just been so much. It's been really, really interesting. It really has been. But today we are working on, oh, Emily's here. Wonderful. So Emily Muiruri is here. She's here to teach us about options trading on the stock market. For those of you who were following us last week, following us last week on stock market sweep, we talked a little about the basics of the stock market, stock trading, and cryptocurrency on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Today we're learning about options trading and why that is really the insurance product of the stock market and how you should be utilizing that in your portfolio now. Now, I think that Jeff Bezos made $13 billion with a B, $13 billion yesterday in the stock market. He is well on his way to being the first self-made trillionaire with a T ever in the history of money. So, Emily.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel as a trader yourself?
Well,
Amazon you own.
it makes me feel quite all right as a trader, whether or not Jeff Bezos is a billionaire or not. You know, to each his own.
He's already a multi-billionaire. Like, what the duck?
Yeah, I got the letters mixed up, the trillionaire, right? But yeah, no, it makes me feel good, obviously. And it just goes to show that there's opportunity out there. You just have to be able to go out there and know what you're doing and grab it and take it. So when we talk going into options and why a lot of investors and a lot of traders like options so much is because it's another form of trading. Right? A lot of people are just familiar with the stock market where you can go buy stocks and buy shares, but the options were created as a derivative from the actual stock market itself. So in the 70s, I think it was 72, 73, options were created primarily as an insurance product to the stock market, because what a lot of investors had a fear of is losing value on their shares. So that's how the options were created, as a derivative to the actual stocks themselves. So in order for you to trade options, you have to have the underlying asset that goes with it. So there are no options without stocks. That's how options were created. So you can use options in many very different ways. What we use them for primarily are for two things. Number one, we use them for protection. Well, actually three things. We use them for protection as an insurance product to the assets that we already own. So if you already own shares of whatever companies you have out there, and those companies themselves have options, because not all stocks have options. So just also understand that. But if you use options as an insurance product, you're essentially insuring the assets that you already own. So the number one thing that people use options for is for protection. The other use that people have with options is they use it for cash flow. The same asset that you have that you can insure, you can also monetize on that asset by doing a strategy called a covered call, where you literally are renting out your shares every month to generate cash flow. So we also use options for cash flow. So write these three things down. We use them for protection, we use them for cash flow, and we use them for speculation also. Okay, and you can do one or two or three, all of them at the same time. But you're using it for a different strategy. So the reason why somebody would use options as a speculation trade, you can also still have, in your portfolio, your insurance product as the options as your insurance product at the same time, and you can also use it as a cash flow vehicle. So it doesn't mean that you can only do one or the other. You can do all three things at the same time. It just depends on you as the individual, the investor, the trader, on what you're actually doing for your trading portfolio. So what you will find is that a lot of investors who are educated and they know and they understand options in their investment portfolio, they'll have their insurance on. Some of them have it on all the time. Some of them have it on when they think that the market is going to be volatile. And then you'll also have them cash flowing. And the speculation really comes for people who want to get into the art of trading or the realm of trading, but maybe they don't have a huge account that has a lot of capital, because in order for you to trade shares, you actually have to go and buy those shares. So if you're looking at shares of, Apple, for example, which is sitting, I think, like at 380 or 390, if you're buying 100 shares of that, that's 30 grand, right? You would need to have $30,000 in your account to just buy 100 shares of Apple. But then that makes you an owner of Apple. Or you can choose to speculate with the option contract for Apple and control it for a certain period of time. Okay, so options really come in with two key things: the price that you're going to pay for that option and how much time you want to have in that option. So that's how options are priced. And now there's other things that go into options, all the other things that create the pricing of the option. But the two main things that when you're looking at options is how much time do you need and how much is it going to cost you? Okay. So if you're looking at a side-by-side example of somebody who would buy 100 shares of Apple versus somebody who would buy the option to control Apple, let's say for the next 90 days, right? The person who buys the contract for Apple for the next 90 days obviously will pay a much lesser price than having to go out and buy the shares outright, because you're only holding that contract for a certain length of time. Now, when you buy that contract or when you purchase that contract, you're doing it because you're speculating, because you're speculating that Apple will go up in price, so that whether it's in 2 weeks or a week or a month, whatever price you paid for that contract has now gone up in value, that you can sell it back to the market and make a profit. So in this case, it would almost be like a lease option, right? Where you're going into a real estate deal, but you're not actually purchasing the property, you're actually just leasing the property from the seller.
For a period of time.
With the agreement that you will buy the property at whatever expiration you two agree on. So it's the same exact thing when it comes to options. It's just the terminology is a little bit different, but it's literally the same thing. So at the end of that contract, either that option will have value or it will not have value. And we buy and sell options for different reasons and for different meanings. Sellers of options sell options because they want to get paid. Buyers of option buy options because they want to be able to sell it at a later time for more money. Does that make sense? So that's what pretty much options are for. We use them for insurance, we use them for cash flow, and we use them for speculation. So a young, well, not necessarily young, but somebody who is brand new that's starting off with a smaller account is more likely going to lean towards trading options because it only takes up a smaller amount of capital to control those shares rather than actually owning those shares.
Okay.
Questions so far? I
get it. It's very similar to all the lease off charges we have in real estate. So part of this is you're making a spread on what you're buying it for, what you're selling it for, and you're counting on the spread in the middle for an option. So you don't actually control or own something, but you don't own something, you're controlling it for a period of time.
Right.
So what are the typical option periods for you guys in the stock market? How long do you sell your options for?
There are so many options. There are options that expire literally every week, right? You can buy a 7-day option, you can buy a 1-day option, you can buy a 3-year option. It just depends really on the actual derivative, but the companies that are mostly traded that have high volume are going to have more options than the companies that are not mostly traded, right? So the high volume stocks or companies are going to have more options in options than those that are not, that don't have high volume. So when you think about the S&P 500 itself, that is it's the most traded ETF. So that's going to have tons and tons and tons and tons of contracts within them. And inside those contracts, they're what we call the prices of the contract that you want to buy. So there's a lot of details that goes into options, but the main thing that I want people to understand is that, when you're buying them or when you're selling them, that there's an outcome that you want, right? When you're speculating, it has to go in the direction that you're speculating in. So if you're buying an option and you want the stock price to go up, then the stock price has to go up to whatever price that is that you bought it for within that period of time. Otherwise, that option starts to lose value. Okay. Now, if you've ever read about options, or if you've ever tried to trade options, you might think it's a lot of things going on, but there's really only 2 types of options, and I want you guys to write these down. There are call options and there are put options. Okay, that's it. That's what options are. There are call options and there are put options. Now there's 4 ways to trade options. You can buy a call, or you can sell a call. You can buy a put, or you can sell a put. That's it. But when you combine all of those different scenarios, it creates all these crazy lingo that you guys sometimes hear us talking about when we talk about covered calls or, debit spreads or, bull put spreads and bear call this and all these things, iron condors and whatnot. That's just the names of the strategy, but there's really two types of options. And if you're on the call side, and you buy a call option, that means you're speculating that the price of the stock is going to go up. If you're on the put side of things and you actually buy a put options, that means you're speculating that the price of the stock is actually going to go down. So you're going to profit from the stock price going down. That's how people are able to use those products to either insure on their portfolio and or cash flow and or speculate. So it just really depends on you as the individual on how you want to use the options, but the options are there. You can trade them in combination with that means you're speculating that separately.
So I was trying to read the Facebook part. How that didn't disturb me. I was like, wait, no, bring my shirts out there. So you guys have talked about iron condors so many times. Why are there things like, how do you get your names for these? They're so much sexier than sandwich lease option. Like, that just makes me want to go to Subway. Hey. It doesn't work. Like, iron condor and flying pig and all those different strategies you guys have. Like, how do you come up with those names?
Flies and all J lizards and all that stuff. I don't know.
There's a J lizard?
Yes.
I think that's like, oh, I actually dated him. I met him on Grindr. Yeah, he was, I think he was Latino. Yeah, I know, I could be wrong. Bo knows him, it's fine. But yeah, so so the names have no meaning or significance?
I don't know who named them. I just started trading and this is what the names were and I just went along with it. So I don't question. I'm just like, okay, if that's what it's called, that's what it's called. Just let me know. Understand what it means, right?
You never actually looked into it, really? Huh? Really? But that's the first thing I do. Like, I look at, I'm like, ooh, let me Google this. Why does this happen? I always feel like there has to be a reason behind it, or else traders are just stoners. That's what it comes down to. They're like,
I'm a
strategy. Oh my God, purple kush, or J lizard, or flying pig mountain. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm more a visual person. So if you paint the picture and tell me that, this is what an iron condor looks like and this is the meaning of an iron condor, I don't care what it's named. Just help me understand what it means and how I'm going to profit from it. And that's all that matters to me. So I didn't go back and find out why they were all named that way. Sorry, Jacob.
We should Google it. Let's Google it now. That's really effective use of our time.
Not doing that. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, what strategies are you using the most right now in options trading?
So with options trading, again, it's different hats for different scenarios. As an investor, because I have retirement accounts, I have an IRA that I hold stocks in. Once I purchase those stocks, those shares, they're asset the same way a home is an asset. Mine's just a paper, it's a paper asset where a home is a physical thing you can actually go see and touch, but it's the same exact thing. So once you own that asset, the next thing that you're taught as an investor is to monetize on that asset. So the same way the real estate investor would buy a property like you did, congratulations, right? The next thing you're going to go do is put some bodies in that house, right? You're not just purchasing that property to let it sit there and say, oh, look at that shiny house that's just sitting there, right?
The house is not shiny, but I know what you're meaning.
Right? But you don't buy a property and just say, okay, nice house, I'll see you in 30 years when the mortgage is paid off, and then you just walk away from it. You then monetize on that asset. So it's the same exact thing. So the real estate investor is going to go look for a tenant to lease the property. And I'm going to do the same thing with my asset. I'm going to go and lease out my shares. That strategy is called a covered call. So that's primarily what I do the most. I rent out my stock, my asset, the same way the real estate investor rents out their asset. Okay. Now, as the real estate investor as well, you don't buy for appreciation, but if you get the appreciation, that's the bonus. So yes, I can buy, Bank of America for $24 today, right? Who knows what it's going to be at $28 or $30 or whatever in a year from now? We don't know. That's never the guarantee. right? But what I'm guaranteed every single month is my cash flow from renting out Bank of America stock. The same way the homeowner or the home investor, the appreciation of the property that they bought today is not guaranteed next year or the year after that. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the market. But what you're guaranteed every single month is your cash flow, right? And then on top of that, your property is insured so that just in case the house burns down, or, you know, you guys are in Florida, there's a tornado or whatever, the house gets blown away, you guys.
We have hurricanes. That's just Kansas. We have hurricanes. Who cares? Keep going.
Something. You guys are covered, so it's the same thing. So for an investor who has assets, shares of companies, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to lease out my shares every single month, and I'm also going to buy insurance and protect those same shares as well. So that's what an investor would do, like in their retirement account. When you put on the trading hat, now it's a completely different thing. Now I'm using options as a speculation tool and also for cash flowing. Now it's a matter of saying, okay, I'm looking at this chart, I'm looking at Apple, or I'm looking at Netflix, I'm looking at Amazon. And based on my bias of whatever I think the stock will do, I then pick what options I want to combine, whether it's a single option or a combination of options, to create a strategy that's either a cash flow strategy or a speculation strategy. So for example, without getting too deep into details, the Iron Condor is a strategy where you profit from the stock going sideways, right? You profit from it just literally doing nothing. So, exactly. So every strategy has its own meaning. So whatever bias you have on the market, you're then going to pick the option strategy that goes with whatever your bias is, and either use the options to either generate cash flow with time passing by, or speculation because you're expecting that stock price to move significantly within that time frame that you control that option. So like I said earlier, sellers get paid to sell options and they cash flow from time passing by. Buyers buy options with speculation that they're going to be able to sell that option back to the market at a later time for profit. But regardless of how you use options, the number one thing is always going to be about understanding price movement, understanding how to position size so that you don't over leverage, because again, options are derivatives. So you have leverage in the options. Remember, it's a contract. So the value of the contract can decay really, really fast based on what the stock price is doing. So it's always a matter of knowing when you're going to get out. If you're speculating and the stock is not going in the direction that you want it to go, you're obviously not going to hold on to that contract and watch it, lose value all the way till it expires. You're going to sell that contract back to the market at whatever price point for a little bit of a loss. But that's where those rules come into place, is knowing when do I still exit out of this trade if it does not go the correct way. So it's the same rules apply as if you were trading a stock. If you're buying shares of something because you're expecting it to move up in price, if it does not do that and does the opposite, well, how long are you going to hold on to those shares before you sell them back and take a little bit of a loss rather than watch the stock go to zero? So it's the same rules apply whether you're trading stocks, whether you're trading options, whether you're trading Forex or futures or whatever. Before you enter into any trade, you have to sit there and say, okay, how much capital am I going to allocate towards this trade? What's my target? What am I targeting in terms of profit? And what is my risk? What am I willing to risk per trade? Once you have those things in place, then it's easy for you to make that decision and pull the trigger because the emotion is out when you have all those things in place. A lot of traders, what they end up doing is that they just click the button and buy. But once you're in the trade, then your emotions get in. If you don't have those rules already set in place of this is where I'm going to get out, or this is what I'm going to do if this happens, then you get emotional about it and you're like, well, tomorrow it's going to go up, or I'll do this tomorrow and whatnot. And then you end up literally just like ruining your whole entire trade because you're not following your own rules. So when we talk about, the leverage of options versus the stock, we talked about this a little bit last week. Stock is 1-to-1, right? If you buy Apple for $100, it goes up $1, you make $1 profit. when you buy options or when you use options, it's a 10-to-1 leverage. So for every dollar you have in the market, you're actually controlling about $10. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit, but it's usually about a 10-to-1. So you're controlling $10 for every dollar you have in the market, which means you can also lose that. So you have to understand how options work, and there's a lot of things that go into it. The most important thing is the time decay, how much time you're buying, how much time you plan on being on that contract, and how much you're going to pay for that contract.
So, how many of you are following this? I know Michael's following it. Wonderful. So, Bo is probably, well, Nelson's eating as he usually does. Okay, Pamela's fine. Yay. Josh is probably looking at Dusty's gorgeous wedding photos, and she's right here sucking on a Starbucks cup. So, is everybody following along so far? Fabulous. Okay, so you've mentioned stocks, you've mentioned options, the difference between the two, but several times you've also talked about Forex, and you've talked about some other strategies too. Got it. Yeah, no problem, Bo. Go get that mobile home. Let's talk. What other commodities do you trade?
I primarily just trade the stocks and options market. I don't do a lot of Forex, and I don't do a lot of futures contracts trading unless I'm going into to hedge and do some other crazy stuff. But for the most part, my forte is in stock trading and options trading. So I would not be the go-to person when it comes to Forex trading or futures trading because I know like that much. But those are other products. But again, going in terms of leverage, the futures market and stock market and Forex market are more leverage than the actual options and stock market. So that's driving like a Ferrari, or like a fast car. So if you don't even know how to drive, trade stocks, you're not touching Forex and you're not touching futures anytime soon because those are even more leverage than the stocks and the options. So it's almost going like baby steps, right? You start with stocks, you understand technical analysis, you understand how to trade, how to enter, how to buy, how to sell, get all the basics down, and then you take on more, you add more to your tool belt, right? So if you're a brand new builder and you're just learning how to use tools, right? You start with the nail and the hammer, then you add the saw, then you add everything else to make you a better builder. But you wouldn't go start using equipment that you've never used before, and then you end up cutting off your finger, right? So it's the same exact thing when it comes to trading. You start with the basic, and then as your skill set increases, then you add on the more complex strategies and markets.
I'm trying to remember what this reminds me, I'm trying to look it up right now. There is one strategy that they talk about in The Big Short where they talk about how you're talking about stocks to options, Forex, and it just reminds me of something. So for those of you who don't know what The Big Short was, in roughly 2006, but we learned about it in 2008, the housing market totally crashed. Okay, there was a lot of corruption that was going on in the lending arena. There was a lot of you scratched my back, I'll scratch yours going on, which led to a lot of conflict of interest and a lot of irresponsible actions from so many institutions, including banks, mortgage lenders, insurance companies, real estate brokerages. It got messy. And the American consumer, the American public, was the one that footed the bill for this. Now, one of the things that made this so irresponsible was when someone would go and get a mortgage on a property. Again, that's when you get a mortgage on a property, you're in essence hedging your losses because you're only in it for the amount that you purchase. Now that's like stocks, like you put your 3% down, your 5% down. Now that is, you own the home, but the bank owns the note. So now the only money you have in the home is what you've actually physically put down. The rest of it, you're paying it over time. Okay, so, but while you're paying it over time, the property still costs the same amount of money, but you went into pretty much a joint ventureship with unfair terms with the bank. You and the mortgage means you and the bank, right? So it created a partnership, if you think of mortgages that way. Now, the thing is, the banks were taking their shares in your partnership, and they were selling them off to other entities, mainly Fannie and Freddie, Sallie Mae, Freddie Mac, the government, they're called secondary note buyers. All right, so they would bundle all of these shares in different partnerships, aka different buyers of their notes, of their mortgages. They would bundle them all together, and then they would sell them to the secondary market. The secondary market would then sell it to Wall Street. Wall Street would create the insurance programs that actually hedged against those notes. And then when everything came tumbling down, it went from insurance companies, banks, all down to the American consumer. It all just trickled downward and downward and downward. So the thing is, the reason why insurance companies make so much money, whether it's in real estate or in stocks, is because they are over leveraging on, when they buy one share of something, they're really buying 10,000 shares of it, of individual products. So in all those individual, the likelihood of all of those products going belly up at the same time is much less, because your money is diversified over a lot more individual units or shares of multiple companies. You're overly diversified. That's why such a luxury vehicle like Emily's saying was like a Ferrari, right? It's something that is moving much faster, and because it's diversified the risk. However, in 2008 with the financial meltdown, it was based on a flawed foundation, and everything had gone haywire because there was so much greed and so much corruption. The thing is that it's not gone away right now. It's just repackaged to you guys. And I mean that in a literal sense. So in real estate, they were called tranches. Okay, so when they took a whole bunch of mortgages and put together in one transaction or one tranche, they put them together in these packages called a tranche. They would sell them. The secondary users would buy them. They would sell them to Wall Street, blah blah blah. But they were filled with bad loans or bad investments.
It's how they packaged. It's how they packaged all the debt, if you would say, whether it was mortgage, credit cards, cars. Before the subprime mortgage, you know, the likelihood of a homeowner defaulting in their home was very slim. So those were what you would call your AAA, but they were actually good debt per se, right? Because the chances of a homeowner losing their home and not paying. But what happened is as the boost for everybody to become a homeowner was increasing back in 2004, 5, 6, and 7, they lowered the qualifying standards for becoming a homeowner.
Mm-hmm.
So those mortgages were more likely to default than a traditional 30-year mortgage, because these were now your jumbo loans where you didn't have to verify your income, you didn't have to state anything. It was just like that. So what they were doing is that they would take a little bit of the good stuff, a little bit of the bad stuff, and put it together and call it AAA, right? Then when that was done with, then they would repackage it and make something else out of it and call that a AAA, but really it was not, right? So they would mix a couple of these, and then these are the things that they end up getting put into people's 401ks, because you're in mutual funds and you're invested in those types of things. Give me 1 second, baby, I'll be right there. So that's what happened with that. And so what the Big Short was, these guys were betting on all of those AAA backed mortgage securities defaulting. So that's how those guys were able to profit, because they were on the other end of that transaction, where people were being sold and buying these AAA and B and whatever packages. These guys were on the opposite of it, saying this thing is not real. This market is going to crash. It's going to be a bubble coming, and that's how they were able to profit. So they were actually buying put options on the market, on real estate, on banks, on, Lehman Brothers and Gold, all these different banks. You guys can watch the movie. I don't want to mess it up if you haven't watched it, but that's what they were betting on. They were betting against all these banks that were holding all these mortgages, that these mortgages were eventually going to default, and that these banks are going to be in trouble. Mm-hmm. But that took a while. So these kids, a few of these people saw it coming way before. So in the beginning, they were losing on those contracts. Remember, they bought contracts, right? So they were speculating that the market was going to crash, or that the housing market was going to crash. So in the beginning stages of the movie, when they first got into it, the market was still going up, and they were wondering, how is the market still going up and all this bad news that's coming out? It's kind of like right now, it feels like deja vu, right? You got all these virus news coming out, but the market's still going up. So that was kind of like the same thing. So in the beginning part of it, Yes, they were losing money literally every single day. They were bleeding money every single day. But eventually the ship hit the iceberg and everything crashed. And that's how those guys were able to profit, because the market eventually did crash. So that's where I talk about, you know, when you're buying options or contracts, how much time? Because if they had bought a shorter time frame type of option contract that expired before the market crashed, they would have lost all their money. But they had contracts that were way past whenever the market crashed, so they had enough time to actually benefit from the market crashing. It would be as if you bought car insurance up until today, right? And it expires today, and then tomorrow you get into a car accident. You don't get paid to replace the car, right? So you need to have enough time when you're speculating with options to actually profit from whatever direction you want the market to go.
It's so interesting. When you're looking at The Big Short, by the way, if you guys have not seen The Big Short, it's actually fantastic. It explains things really well. Watch it 3 times. The first time, enjoy it. The second time, watch it with Google open so you can Google what you don't know. The third time, you'll actually start to really comprehend it. And it's also Christian Bale and Ryan Gosling. So what else do you need? Anyway, and Steve, never mind. Steve Carell, right? Okay, good. Yeah. Who's not playing a funny character. Surprisingly, he's still very Jewish. So anyway, we have a lot going on with what was going 2008, 2000, and in 2020 right now. So long story short, there's a saying, Jesus is coming, buy puts. So we're saying, Jesus is coming, buy puts, okay? We use that in real estate in a couple other ways. But if you start to notice some of these strategies that Emily's talking about, they're what the banks are using and insurance companies are using as well when they're building their portfolios and growing their wealth. So understand that. It's interesting how this all works out in the long run. That you said something that I wanted to come up on because it was so interesting, how the parallels with real estate and stock and how at a certain level these asset classes all merge together. So in the stock market, if you haven't heard of these things called REITs before, the real estate investment trusts. And what they are is you would buy shares of a REIT. The REIT goes out and buys different asset classes of real estate and they're put together in one REIT, one package that you can actually invest in, a mutual fund, right? So then you're able to buy into that fund and you get a return on it. So real estate is being sold on Wall Street. One of the biggest things that people don't realize is that Wall Street now owns over 7% of the homes in the United States. So learning how to trade options and knowing enough about real estate, you guys are going to become more well-rounded investors. For example, Emily, we've talked a few times now that we're expecting between 800,000 to 1.7 million foreclosures between Q4 and Q1. Now, we are in Q3 right now, right? Yes, we are. I think about it for a second. So we're now in Q3. So we have the rest of this quarter before we start seeing things fall apart. Why are we expecting that? Well, Emily, how many people are unemployed right now?
30-something million last we checked.
Million. Yeah. And the employment numbers come out again when?
Unemployment news comes out tomorrow, and then we'll have the full unemployment the first week of August for the unemployment rate.
Mm-hmm. So watch on Friday, see what happens. But we have all these people at unemployment. They have been unemployed. They've been unemployed for a while. They're stopping the stimulus checks, so you're not getting your federal $600 a month, like little gifts that you're getting. And there's just a lot of back payment. A lot of people have gone into forbearance. Now, that's all fine and dandy, except the bill still comes due. And if you're still unemployed, you're screwed. So, Emily, what is the equivalent in options on an equity partnership when you do an equity play, equity split? Do you have that in stock? So we do that in foreclosures.
Say that like one more time with what? The equity split?
Yeah, is there an equivalent of an equity split?
In the stock, I believe there is. I'm not too knowledgeable on that. But if you're talking in terms of how to protect your physical asset in the stock market in terms of equity, is that what you're asking?
No, So substitute the asset class. So in real estate, substitute for stock. In real estate, if you have an asset that you can no longer afford it right now because of certain circumstances like COVID, and now you're falling behind on payments, but you have equity in your property, you can do a forbearance, or if you get too far behind, the forbearance still doesn't cover. If the forbearance is greater than the equity in the home, right? So you owe 50,000, you have 75,000 on the mortgage anyway. So there's a difference, right? If you've got to come up with that difference, you could have to do a short sale, but instead of doing a short sale, if an investor comes in early enough, or a friend or a family member or someone, they've got the balance. They say, tell you what, you're behind $10,000, I'll pay that and get you caught up. And then from this point on, we'll split the rest of the equity 50-50 when you sell the property. Is there anything like that in stock?
No.
Really?
No.
That's flying pig mountain.
Yeah, I gotta take this quick call real quick. Give me 1 second, I'll be right back. I gotta take this quick call.
Sure. So did I confuse anybody about what an equity split is real quick? Or can I answer questions about it? No? I know Bo's confused. I know Carlos is confused. But did anybody else get it? Do I need to do it slower? Yes? Okay. You missed everything. That was how you make $1 million, Bo. So great. Damn it, you missed out again. So an equity split. So say that you have a homeowner, like right now we're expecting some foreclosures to come out. We've been in a period of really low foreclosures for a very long period of time. But as we know, real estate is cyclical. Every 20 years, you see the same pattern coming up over and over and over again for about 200 years, and everything collapses and a new republic is born. So we'll get to that part later. So right now we're at the 20-year mark, and we already have this global pandemic, and people are forbearing their mortgages, which means the banks have allowed them to take their monthly payments during COVID, and they're putting on the back end of their mortgage, right? And I'm fairly sure right now that the interest is paused there, but I'm not sure. It could still be accruing interest. It might be dependent on the bank. I don't know. So the difference is if you need forbearance in the home, but say you pay $5,000 a month, you're behind now $15,000 because you haven't paid in 3 months, but you had $100,000 in equity in the property. Well, they don't usually get that far, but for example, that would mean if you were to pay that $15,000, you'd have $85,000 in equity with forbearance, right? But you have to pay it. If you have no way to pay it, well, they can still take the home from you because you can't afford the $15,000, even though you have the equity in the home. So typically at that point, they do like a restructuring, or they do something different to help you catch up, right? So long story short, what investors do now when foreclosures are low is they say, okay, listen, you owe that $15,000. It's not going to benefit you to restructure. No, you have to look at all this, right? It's not going to benefit you to restructure or to remodify or refinance because of X, Y, and Z in your credit or blah, blah, blah. The bank won't let you because you're unemployed. That's a big thing. They won't let you to refinance because you don't have a job right now. So because you can't refinance the property and you can't afford the $15,000 for your mortgage the past 3 months, and you're not employed a month 4, now they're going to start the eviction process. Well, what are you going to do? So then someone comes in with 15 grand and says, tell you what, I'm going to catch up your mortgage, and now you're no longer delinquent, you're no longer in foreclosure, you're good to go. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take over the property. Okay? So I am in it with you. We're now partners. Okay? You have the mortgage, I supply the down payment, and from this date forward, whatever equity is built up, we are going to split 50-50, or whatever you decide to do. There are other ways to do it as well. Like you can take a fee for your services on top of it or whatever. But now you're good to go. Now it's 50-50. So say you sell that property and 3 years or whatever, and there's $100,000. Well, out of that $100,000, you get your $15,000 back, and the $85,000 left is split half, right down the middle. They get their half, you get your half. Everybody's happy, right? So that's a way of using an equity split, where you take an asset and its value, you save the transaction, then you go and you separate it, right? So that's what you want to make sure you know. That's something we're going to be doing a lot of coming up here in the end of Q4, Q1. Emily, we love you. Thank you for coming on. I know you had to go. Thank you so much, my dear. But the whole point about those things are those are trickier strategies that need a little bit more education. Okay, you got to know a little bit more about how foreclosure law works, a bank's appetite, a little bit about short sales, a little bit about options, lease options. It's its own little animal, but you want to make sure you know what you're doing properly. Now, this is the thing. I could slow this down, and what we're trying to do in Investor Party and what we're trying to do with Real Estate Survivor, I could slow it down and I would be doing the worst social injustice that we possibly can do. Because even though we're trying to build something here, you guys need to know that knowledge because you have a social duty to go out there and help those individuals. You need to know it before Q4 and Q1. You can't be going through your learning curve when everything else is going down, right? So we've got to get you guys understanding what those things are. What I'm going to try to do is I'm trying to play this where you guys have some stock knowledge because that's going to really affect a lot of things, and your real estate knowledge, combine them together so it makes sense. And you're able to see, oh, well, there are a lot of similarities here. I'm just going to become a more savvy investor. So one of the things you're going to be looking forward to is the equity split training, the foreclosure training, how to use the forbearance. We're going to be doing those things coming up. Pay attention. It's not necessarily hard, but it's not easy, right? So we're going to pay attention to that as we go along, and we got to figure out a way to put that on the calendar. So Nelson, write it down. Thank you. Okay, what questions do you guys have? Emily's gone right now, but I'll see what I can answer. And if you have questions about the program or in real estate, go ahead and ask, and we will go from there. What do you guys have? I see your face there. You're on screen. I know what you're doing. Comments, questions for the chef? Derek, you're here. What do you want to say?
Wore out.
You poor thing.
Oh, you unmuted me. Oh boy. Yeah, I'd really like to learn some more options. Like, that was interesting. Like, I didn't even know you could buy insurance for stocks. Like, that was cool as shit. And make money that way? What? The things you learn.
It's very true, because what people don't realize is insurance is against assets. So just like you buy car insurance or home insurance or renter's insurance, it's for an asset, and stocks are insurance. There are various products that go with like even life insurance, because life is an asset. The thing that's really cool about insurance that I found, and I can't believe I'm such a dork, I just said insurance is cool. Jesus Lord. I used to be really hot, I promise. If you don't believe me, well, screw you. But I used to be really cool, right? But now I talk about, oh my God, look how sexy insurance can be. I look like such a suburban dad right now. I want to just slit my wrists. I'm so sad. Anyway, back to the statement of whole. Your insurance products are actually a vault where you grow your wealth. So what insurance does is if you buy into an asset, which is an insurance policy, and it will eventually mature over time. That's another way of growing your wealth. We're going to talk about that later because that's going to just do too much. But how it ties in with stocks and real estate is one of the missing pieces that can actually help your portfolio. George Antone teaches a way to use your insurances to pay down debt and even pay off your mortgage in a quarter of the time. So you want to know what these vehicles are. That's why when people talk about, oh, I'm going to get a 15-year mortgage over a 30-year mortgage, I'm like, okay, well, sorry about it. I would rather do a 100-year mortgage and use my financial education and pay that sucker off in 7 years than do what you're doing, because I can do other things with my money and I can make a lot more. So, cool. But if you don't know anything, then yes, go ahead and do a 15-year mortgage and stuff. For some people, it makes sense, right? For some portfolios, it doesn't make sense. Anyway. Okay, so that was really everything that we want to say. Emily was in charge of the options trading today. Don't forget, we are going to be doing our Stock Market Survivor. So if you have questions about it or you want to enroll, go ahead and head over to stockmarketsurvivor.com. You are going to learn how to trade with private coaching twice a week in a small group setting. Emily's going to teach you guys how to open up a brokerage account, how to start paper trading, how to read charts, and how to stock trading through your paper account. You are going to have a minimum of a certain amount of trades to do, and there are going to be team exercises done throughout it as well. So you learn how to leverage not only your portfolio, but your relationships in a healthy way. And that's going to help you grow, grow, grow. And we're going to keep that product growing. I'm so excited about that. We are limiting that training to about 10 individuals. If it's just Emily, if we get another coach, we'll do another 5. But we are going to be limiting that, and we're going to be keeping that up until probably a week from Friday, because I started a little earlier than I was expecting. So, but once it fills up, it's done, and we're going to get going. So if you're interested, make sure you sign up over there, and we will email you an application. Okay, so you'll have that. If you have not liked us on Facebook, go ahead and follow us on Investor Party. You can go to investorparty.com and ask to join the party, or you can go onto our new Facebook page or Instagram page or whatever, LinkedIn, or tag a muffin or snap a chat. I don't know. It's Instagram. It's Instagram. We're doing an Instagram page. Nelson, don't make that face. Instagram, we're going to be following us at Investor Party. Things are just happening all the time. I'm so excited you guys are here. And we're going to have a great time on Friday. Tomorrow for Real Estate Survivor, don't forget you are going to have PropStream coming and showing you their new app that goes along with your software. And we have a special for you guys on Friday, which I'm keeping to myself, but be here Friday at 3 o'clock. We'll have a great time then at the party, guys. All right. Mwah. Take care. You're wonderful. Be safe. Love each other. Bye-bye.